The show that doesn't grab them by the but does occasionally kick them in the balls. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome to it. If you do not know what this show is about, strap yourself in, kiddies. We have got a lot of stuff to run through, including headlines like Giuliani is at it again, muddying the waters. Trump is out there just basically writing his own ticket to jail, and at the whole time, the government is still shut down. Before we get to all of that, well, a brief introduction or two is in line. First off, me, your host. My name's Shaggy Jenkins. You can find me on my website, shaggyjenkins.com, or wherever fine social media is served at Shaggy Live. The guy that joins me around this time every week has been known to be in the political circuit himself. Now is the one that they call the professor. Please welcome from West Texas himself, ladies and gentlemen, Drew Landry.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for letting me be here, Shaggy. Good to be back again.
Okay, so we have got to start off with the most fun story that you can start off with on the beginning of the week, which is Rudy Giuliani. Because, look, every single time that we bring up this guy's name, it's usually in some sort of context of, oh my God, what did he do now? And this latest little romp through NBC's Meet the Press has everybody scratching their head going, exactly what is the strategy for the chief defense attorney for Donald Trump? Drew, you want to make a guess?
Well, I have many guesses, but, you know, the former mayor of New York who rose to prominence after 9/11, who ran for president in 2008, ran for president in 2012, is a big fan of President Trump. You know, this is a guy who has a terrible, terrible case of foot and mouth syndrome. And here we are again talking about something dumb that he has said. And, you know, he's gone on the record. You can go back and look at all the quotes that he said about how the president and his campaign had no collusion whatsoever with Russia or Russian agents or any of those things. He said it several times. It's been played back several times. I mean, just countless and countless times. Even the president has said nothing with me or my campaign. It's always been that. And then he goes on the media just this past week and says, you know, the president didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know if anyone else in the campaign had anything to do with it. They may have, but it was never Trump. And you're like, well, wait a minute here. That is so completely different than what you've been saying here for the past year and a half.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this out here. Didn't it come across as him saying, okay, look, you got us. Everybody colluded with Russia, but not Trump.
That's kind of how the feeling goes. It's just, you know, he keeps moving the goalposts every single time. Whenever you're about to make a 25-yard field goal, he now moves it back another 20 yards and says, well, now it's a little different now. It wasn't just, you know, anybody. It might have been the campaign, but it wasn't the president. It was never Trump. And then he goes on the media today and says, if Michael Cohen and Trump talked before he testified, so what? What's the big deal about that? That's quite the big deal. And for somebody who made himself known as a federal prosecutor, who made his case known for putting away mobsters in New York and New York City, he should know that this is a big deal. And for him to downplay this is just incredibly, incredibly bad.
I find it funny that Rudy Giuliani, who, let's just be honest, reshaped downtown New York when he kicked out all the strip joints and stuff that Howard Stern made his fame off interviewing the dancers from. I mean, look, this guy has always had kind of a more Puritan, a holier-than-thou almost concept of politics. But has Rudy Giuliani, and Drew, this might be the weirdest question I've ever asked you on this show, and I've asked you some strange stuff. Does Rudy Giuliani accept Donald Trump as his Lord and Savior? Because he almost has this way of decrying him as infallible when Mueller's investigation proves time and time again links to him being most definitely fallible.
It seems as though he's taking up this defense that is, I'm with Trump and that's it. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. He's the one. He's the shining light. And I think federal prosecutor of New York bad guys Giuliani would be just carving up the personal lawyer of the president, Giuliani, at this particular moment. And that's what's really sad is that is you see this complete duopoly here between these two characters, and it's like, really, Mayor, is this really what's going on?
Well,
really?
Chief defense attorney for Donald Trump this weekend went like one step further because, okay, so before it was nobody colluded, then it was everybody but Trump colluded, then this is the latest kind of bombshell to drop on everybody. It was, hey, you know that whole thing that Donald Trump said that Michael Cohen did but didn't do? Well, he did it. He did it all the way up until Donald Trump was elected president. But, it's not really illegal. True thoughts?
Yeah, look, this has been the constant defense. It may have been somebody else, not my guy. It's okay. Collusion isn't illegal. I mean, we've heard all these arguments that they've been throwing out against the wall to see what sticks. And, just whenever everybody was kind of falling asleep on the whole Russia thing, here comes Giuliani and just bursts it wide open because, the president's been saying this is a witch hunt. And he's been saying it for a long, long time. He's called them the 12 angry Democrats, like they're the 12 dwarfs of Snow White. But the truth of the matter is this isn't a witch hunt. And Giuliani has proved that just by saying maybe other people in the campaigns colluded, not Trump. And then the Michael Cohen stuff comes out. And then it's like, well, who cares if they really talked before he went to – so it's a constant – hey, it's okay if Trump did it. But if it was Bill Clinton, if it was Hillary Clinton, if it was something with Hillary Clinton's emails, if this was Bernie Sanders or anybody not named Donald Trump in politics, this would be a big problem.
That's the part that really kind of bothers me because this is the thing. We talked about goalposts moving, alibis. Let's just look at this from a puerile legal judicial sense. This is not a goalpost moving. This is once again Rudy Giuliani this weekend moving the alibi from where it was established through Donald Trump's tweets, through public statements before, now to this new mark. And the problem is, you like football, and everybody knows this, there's only so much damned field you go before touchdown. And the more that Giuliani keeps moving this goalpost, it's not moving it away from the goal line that they need to go to. It's moving it more towards Robert Mueller's camp. With this latest statement, how close to the goal line are we till touchdown?
That's been the ongoing question. How close are we going to get, and how close are we now? You have to feel like that we're in the red zone. And for those who have no idea about football or not getting any of this analogy, the red zone, quote unquote, red zone is where you're in the 20-yard line to the end zone. You're 20 yards in and closer. So you're very, very close. You're within striking distance. And a lot of the president's supporters and defenders have said this has gone on too long. He's been on this thing since 2017. Well, yeah, he has, and this has gone, for about a year and a half or so, close to 2 years. But if you remember, whenever President Clinton was being investigated for the Whitewater ongoings that took place in Arkansas, and then they stumble upon what happened with him and this intern Monica Lewinsky. That was 4 or 5 years that we were talking about here, and then boom. So, and let's not forget about the Benghazi investigation that Congress kept investigating close to 8 times. And spending a lot of money. And that was okay because it was President Trump and his supporters and defenders' enemies and opponents. Whereas since this is on him, it's a whole different ballgame, whole different thing. This is taking too long. Well, to quote one lawyer named Ken Starr, he said, lawyers have to be thorough, and they have to do a very thorough job. Well, nobody knows that more than Robert Mueller. And it's not like he's some secret closeted Democrat. This is a man who's been part of the Republican Party for a very long time. And he's the special prosecutor. He's doing all this investigations, and he's made indictments. There are people going to jail. I mean, this isn't something that is small time. This is a big deal. And the closer that you get to all these agreements and these plea bargains and all these things, the closer you're getting to the end zone, and that's to bring out a charge of impeachment against the president. Now, that's a very long-winded answer to your very small, short question there, so I apologize for that. But we're very close.
Yeah, it's okay because, see, look, I admire a certain show from my youth called Matlock, and when we talk about the Matlock moments of this, Robert Mueller is getting very close to putting his hand up under his white linen suit with his black bow tie. Okay, bow ties went out in the 18th century. Why did Southern people still wear them in the 1980s? Okay, yeah. But point being is that we're almost at the point of the Matlock show where the hand goes into the jacket and then the secret diary or secret envelope or the missing link evidence comes out of Mueller's pocket. Because I am just going to kind of change the way that the normal media has been looking at this. And let's talk about the criminal side of it. Because, Drew, I'm going to put you in the role of Donald Trump.
Oh, boy. I do a pretty good impression.
Oh, okay. Let's give us a little.
Listen here, okay, Mr. Shaggy, I don't know who you are, but I've met you several times, and I forget you all the time. But I've been to Hawaii several times. I own many properties there. As a matter of fact, I own the entire island, but I've never been there, okay? It's a totally fake place. I made it up. I bought it on my own. Totally me. I love it all. Not as good as Florida. I know Mar-a-Lago. I go there a lot, okay? I know a lot of people in those places do a very good jobs there. A lot of good jobs we had in Hawaii. I know that because I created all of them, okay? Lots of golf courses there. It's very my place. I know it. Lots of good things.
I just got to say this from the part of my poor Hawaiian wife, who is probably, when she listens to this broadcast, weeping openly for her people. If any cracker, if any haole was to ever claim that they're the ones that pulled the islands from the sea, clearly you did not watch Moana.
Well, let me tell you about a movie that I did watch called Lilo and Stitch. My favorite Hawaiian in the world is Lilo. Great person, all right? She's now one of my big lawyers here in the White House. She works in here. Very cartoon character. That has a great personality. Lots of great things to say. I don't allow that little alien to come along here either. No more 626s. Go away. Illegal.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. So if you were in the role of Donald Trump, and I am going to put myself in the despicable role of being Rudy Giuliani, okay, here it is. I have went on the news, and at this point of my defense career with you, I have moved the goalpost some 5 times on Sunday panel shows. I have, for all intents and purposes, changed your alibi about 6 or 7 times. And every single time that I go and plead a new public case for your innocence, I'm actually admitting to more guilt. If you're Donald Trump and I'm Rudy Giuliani, at what point do you go, stop helping me?
If I'm the president, I say no. You keep doing that because it's making you look bad and it's not making me look bad at all. All I could do if it gets too bad, I just say you're fired, and then I can just put you. I can just squash you. And say you did a terrible job. He's an awful person. I mean, that's what he's done to all those people who's worked inside the White House. His first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, called him he's dumb as a box of rocks. This is a CEO of Mobil Exxon. Okay, I'm not too big on those at the top, but they're not stupid, and they don't have a box of rocks for brains. So let's just get something straight about that. He made a big deal about the Omarosa. And said how she was gone, glad she's gone and all this stuff. I mean, he really just squashes people. And if he feels like that, it's time to squash Rudy, he'll squash Giuliani. And that's just his mentality about it.
This is the thing that kind of gets me about the curious case of the Trump administration at this point, because a lot of mainstream media loves comparing Donald Trump's presidency to Richard Nixon's timeline. Now, we have to have a quintessential understanding that whatever the controversy was that started Watergate was far, far removed and only involving domestic assets, people, and places. Way, way different in the long run than we can truthfully, honestly say about whatever we're going to call Russia-Trump thing. Okay?
Yeah.
But when history looks back, and this is the part that I've got to kind of scratch my head and go, wow, if you really look into what happened into the last days of the Nixonian president administration, Drew, you kind of notice that the president was a little spinny, out of control-y, especially when it came to things like his public defense of his own actions. So I know it's very hard to compare the reality star of Donald Trump to the very buttoned-down guy that gave the speech called Checkers after a dog and won public appeal from politician of Richard Nixon. Even understanding the fundamental difference of these two presidents, this point of the timeline is kind of crucial in Mueller's investigation, isn't it?
Yeah, there are great parallels to make here, and it seems like any time that a president is in trouble in something like this, because we did the same thing to Bill Clinton during his impeachment process, and the parallels were being made there. The thing about the Nixon-Trump comparison is the ongoing congressional investigation and the constant attacks that both have made on the media and their enemies, and the other things that you have mentioned. We have to remember just a little bit here is that Nixon was an incredibly paranoid guy. And he went to his dying day thinking that Kennedy somehow stole that election in 1960. And so at the end of his first term, Nixon was a fairly popular president. He didn't need to do those things that he did. I mean, in his reelection in 72, he won 49 states. First president to ever do that. So there was no need for him, but he just couldn't get it out of his head. And so he had to know what McGovern was doing. Whereas Trump here, you see that you see this type of, I want loyalty, be loyal to me. Nixon was an elected official. He was a former vice president. He understood aspects of the law. I don't think he really liked it.
No.
I think that's kind of how we are here with Trump. He knows there's this thing called the Constitution. He knows there's this thing called laws. I don't think he really wants to pay attention to it and say, I shouldn't have a lot of rein in. Whatever I do, since I'm the president, nothing is illegal that I can do. That was the Nixon mentality. This is Trump's mentality. If I do it, it's legal. Well, and that's a very warped idea. That is a theory out there, but it's warped and it's not entirely correct.
I think we could sum up all of Trump's administration as not entirely correct at this point.
So I don't, as we're gearing up here for the 2020, presidential election, which it's January of 2019. We just finished an election just about a month and a half ago. But, we got people on the Democratic side announcing they're going to run for president. They're going to try to get as much money as Trump has. They're going to do what they can to campaign finance and get out there and become household names in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all these other places, well ahead of the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. So what I'm getting at here is that he's going to be one of the main focuses of this campaign, as that is for every president. But they're going to focus more on illegal activity and the Mueller investigation, and they're going to campaign on that in the swing states of Florida and Ohio and Michigan and all those other types of places that voted for him in 2016 but may have felt betrayed. So what I'm saying here is this is going to turn into a campaign issue.
I was about to say, it sounds like you're campaigning again. Jeez, Drew.
No.
I mean, where do I vote for you at this point? Preach, brother, preach.
Oh, goodness. But so that's kind of what's going to happen here, and the president's been pretty good at labeling people and diminishing them. I mean, Elizabeth Warren's going out there. He calls her Pocahontas. And, he doesn't know quite how to take some of the others, but he'll come up with some sort of name about them. That's just where we are. I mean, he's made divisive politics rather, I don't know, fun? Maybe that's the wrong word to use.
The main kind of power tool in his arsenal. And this is the thing that kind of bothers you about this whole scenario, because when we're talking about mainstream media coverage of Donald Trump, and once again, reverting back to what we was trying to compare it to, the Nixonian presidency, Nixon did, towards the end of the investigation that led to his resignation, start to publicly, through printed media, decry the accusations. And he did it in much the same methodology of Donald Trump. When it came to the allegations and to the possible ramifications of Watergate, we're talking hush money, we're talking witness intimidation, we're talking public statements made to the contrary of what has been released as published fact from the judicial investigation. So as long as we're trying to compare timelines here, we're at the point where Donald Trump and Richard Nixon started to kind of unravel the facade of coolness. Now, Nixon, like we have pointed out before, was a very seasoned politician who knew how to reserve, even though we got the tapes later that said, oh boy, he talked a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But Richard Nixon was very reserved in the public eye, and it took him longer to quote-unquote spin out. Donald Trump, not known for being able to maintain his temper, maintain a poker face, or even maintain some sort of decorum of presidency. Drew, do you think that the timelines are going to match up, or are we going to see an exponential decline under Trump?
Man, I wish I had a good answer to that. I think what this is going to come down to is if Mueller and his investigation doesn't make the case for impeachment before the 2020 election season gears up, this is going to be constant campaign fodder in 2020. And, I hate to say this, but you have to give credit where it's due. Trump has smart people around him, and doesn't always listen to them, but he's got some interesting campaign people who can give him advice on how to deflect this. And this is kind of, because we have to remember that the Watergate came after Nixon's reelection, didn't come into a first term, like we're finding here with Trump. So I wish I had a really good answer to that, but I think the quarterback, again, to carry on with this
analogy of football,
the big thing we're going to look at here is Robert Mueller and his investigation as to how this turns out and what we find and what his charge will be. And since the House of Representatives has changed hands from Republican to Democratic, if there's enough compelling evidence, they might bring out articles of impeachment if they feel that the Mueller investigation has been that solid.
And that's the thing, too, because though he was in a Republican-controlled Congress at the time, when enough of those Republicans started to switch over to the side of doubt, that's when Watergate started to exponentially lead to the resignation of the presidency.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Keep in mind, with the quote-unquote blue wave that happened in the midterms, because the House actually flipped control, this could, with as many representatives that have claimed they cannot wait to use their subpoena power, be very exponentially faster. Drew, we got to take a break. Look, when we come back, it's going to be two white guys judging other white people for their really white actions. Find out what all the cracker action is about when we get back. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Dad! Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Nice.
More news, less alternative facts. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome back to it. Hey, if you've missed any part of the show, first off, I'm sorry. Second of all, you probably should go check out our website, shaggyjenkins.com, or wherever fine social media is served at Shaggy Live. Now, if you're on Spotify, just look for me, The Shaggy Jenkins Show, as well as Stitcher and iTunes. And, I don't want to sound like a modern-day radio Heidi Fleiss, but boy, do I get around. The gentleman joining me as my correspondent today is known for his upstanding citizenship because at one point he was going for a high elected office. Higher than I've ever been before, let me tell you that. Ladies and gentlemen, from the West Texas District, instructor and former politician and all-around wise guy, please welcome Drew Landry.
Hey, good to be back again, Shaggy. Thanks.
Oh, man, so we have so much to unpack with the story of, and this is the thing, I thought that in modern times, racism against Native Americans was kind of hidden behind all the police officers killing black people, the black women, and the inequality and the institutionalized for-prison profit system, or the fact that the 13th Amendment is actually used to get slave labor by a lot of people. And if you don't believe that slave labor is still legal, read the 13th frickin' Amendment. But this story grabs me in a really special place because we had a tribal elder from, and let's just go ahead and be honest, the people that owned this country before us crackers came along. A chief was doing a intertribal chant. And Drew, I'm going to let you take the story from there.
Well, he's doing this intertribal chant around the Lincoln Memorial, and then he's met with some resistance from at this March for Life rally, and then these students from the state of Kentucky, from a Catholic school, are surrounding him. And from the media that we look at, it looks as if they're mocking him with the hats that say "Make America Great Again," and they're in the red hat or in the white hat. And it looks as though that the Native American is trying to move forward or trying to find some escape route, because a lot of these students are encompassing him and people around and those who are with him. So, but the photo that we get and the meme that has become is this smirking student from this Catholic school with a "Make America Great Again" hat, standing in the way of the Native American, beating on the drum and making this peaceful chant. And those around this particular student are chanting back. So, or making fun of them in some way. And that's the scene that is brought to us. And it's like, really?
Okay,
This is where we are.
This is the part that really gets you, because at the heart of all of this issue is the fact that when you show up in front of a person that's Native American with a hat that says "Make America Great Again" and you white, that implies you're leaving.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there, because to them, "Make America Great Again" is a very different statement. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yes, there are many connotations that one can take from this particular thing. Now, I do want to make mention that there's a story floating around the internet suggesting that what has been reported has been taken out of a greater context. I think it's Reason has stated that there's a 2.5-hour video that you can watch, that there's another group taunting these students, and they're kind of walking away, and then they run into this Native American and the others who are with them, and they don't know what's going on, and there's a mass confusion. And so in what this rather, and Reason is a right-wing publication, let's just not make any bones about it. And so what they're suggesting is, in this greater context, there's confusion between the Native American and the students, and it's kind of like, well, is this Native American and the people around him and going to help these students, or what's going on? In my mind, I'm thinking there really should be no reason for the student to be in the way of anybody, and the whole group of students need to get out of their way. But that's kind of where we are with the reporting, and those who are buying into what Reason has suggested is going back on their ongoing defense of the president and of Make America Great Again and of all those things, suggesting that it's the mainstream media and they are fake and they are biased and all this and that. Yeah, and so there's a bit of interesting things there.
Yeah, I got to throw out this very interesting kind of scenario to you, because if that little reasoning, as it were, is indeed true, it's still wrong and it's still BS. And this is why I'm going to say wrong and BS, because these were two gangs of people in this story that were menacingly approaching each other. Had they been people of color, the tear gas and SWAT gear would have come out. But because they asses was lily white crackers, we let these menacing gangs confront each other. And at the heart of the matter, it is, once again, white people getting away with stuff that other people would have already been thrown under the jail at. So
you're exactly right about that. Yeah, you are, and that hardly ever gets echoed around. You know, I mean that's just not the full part of the conversation. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head on that one.
This is the thing that really should bother you from a Drew. Me and you fancy ourselves some Southern gentlemen, don't we? You're like, not with an accent like Foghorn Leghorn, you weirdo. I say, boy, we fancy ourselves the types that would wear bowler ties unironically. But here's the point that I want to get, because, okay, I have been studying a lot of genealogy lately and been studying kind of the patterns that established people on planet Earth. And this is one of the most interesting little biological facts that we can acknowledge. The lighter or more transparent your skin are on the DNA evolutionary scale means you are among the youngest of the evolutions of Homo sapiens. That means that the darker the skin a person contains, the closer to the beginnings of Homo sapiens and life as we know it their people came from. And that's something very beautiful when you think about it. The browner the skin, the closer you are to the beginning. And as such, from a genetic, from a biological standpoint, people like First Nation tribes of the North American continent and crackers like us from Europe, well, they're an older species of human than we are. And so, Drew, us being Southern gentlemen, how does this all connect? Because you were like, boy, Shaggy, you have went off the ledge here. Southern boys are always taught to respect their elders. And when it comes to First Nation peoples of the North American continent, they are biologically our elders. Why is it that First Nation people, the Native Americans, as it were, as we identify them here in the United States, why is their struggle for acceptance and, let's just be honest, a little respect so damn hard?
Oh man, that's an incredible question. I think it has everything to do with the history of this country and the ongoing problems that have taken place since then. Since the landing at Plymouth Rock and the landing at Jamestown and the landing at Roanoke and all of those particular things that I went backwards in chronological order, all of those particular aspects, and then those things that came after that. I mean, these are, it's been a rocky relationship that the white man has won, and and I don't know how else to really say that. And that's just kind of where we are. We have stated that we intend to, in past treaties, to give land back and to help. And I mean, it's a big celebration when there's two Native Americans who were elected to Congress, first time ever. Okay, that and the fact that we were celebrating that in 2018 and 2019, that should ring very big alarms and very red alerts that this is something that has just now happened. That speaks volumes to the to the ongoing difficult relationship that's been taking place for a long, long time. So didn't mean to go that back far on you on there, but
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There is a lot to unpack with a simple story like this, because here's the thing. Even when we were kids, even when I was a kid, my lily white parents, actually one of them was darker. Okay, there's a lot to unpack with what I've learned about my genetic history, Drew. But when it comes to this whole thing that my parents were talking about when I was a kid versus what parents talk about with their kids now, anytime we went through the reservations of North Carolina, anytime that we went through tribal lands in North Carolina, we were always taught that these weren't Indians that drink the file water and they were just loosey-goosey, the worst of civilization. No, we were told, hey, these were the people that owned the state before you, and we took everything from them, and then we fought a stupid war on all of their tribal lands, not once, but twice. So, be nice to the, and I hate to use this term, but they said Reds when I was a kid, you know, or like that team out of Washington.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But getting to the whole point of this matter, it does seem that the more we go in United States history, the longer that we go in American society, the less we acknowledge our brown indigenous roots, the people that actually established this territory before we just, you know, crackers came in and took over like we usually do, acting like we own land and property and stuff and take your beads. But, I mean, before the white man, and I you know, ladies and gentlemen, please reflect on the moment of irony that's about to occur here. The white man really ruined the North American continent. I know I'm saying that as a cracker from North Kakalaka, but hear me out. When it comes to celebrating First Nation traditions, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Peru, I mean, you name the country that is still joined to us in landlocked continuity, they celebrate their First Nation establishments way more prominently than we do in the United States. We have denigrated indigenous people. I mean, we grew up with the term Indian giver. You know what that implies, don't you?
Yep.
It should have been cracker giver, because the white man is the one that promises you stuff and then takes it back. Yeah. I mean, the only part of the native or Indian, that was a slang for some strange reason, their only role they have in it is of confusion, and that would be the honest truth. However, this story kind of bothers me for one little specific reason, and it's because no matter where you go in the United States, crackers, white people, honkies as it were, you have usurped lots of indigenous people. And I don't say that as a guy that comes from the state or former colony of North Carolina. I also say that as a person that comes from the 50th state here in Hawaii, where we didn't even give acceptance to their language or even recognize them through the Department of the Interior as indigenous people. Hawaiians are a lost American tribe. So when we bring up all this disrespect that white culture has for these people, it kind of really sticks to you that if you're looking for a brighter tomorrow, if you were born as a First Nations person, it really kind of throws much further that dream of a better day when people actually accept you were here first.
Yeah.
So, Drew, I'm going to ask you a simple question.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, I know. Here we go. Simple questions again, but this one is very, very simple. How do we teach people in the United States to respect First Nations or our elder people?
Oh boy, there's several ways to do this. I think it first starts in our schools. I mean, we have to tell the very difficult and long story of Western settlement and what was going on, and who was here when people landed in particular places, and how that relationship became strained. We have, for the most part, forgotten that. They have not, and the natives have not forgotten it. Many people in this country will forget the Mexican-American War. Those in Mexico have not forgotten it. So I use that as an example for things that we as a country, we as a race of people have forgotten a lot of things that have happened over the course of our time on this land. And we need to really be reminded that even though there were reasons for settlement, there's the often statement that hearts are in the right place and minds are trying to be as pure as possible. We need to really examine those particular things and say, we need to have an honest discussion about what's happened, and a very lengthy study on this and a discussion on. We need to encourage this sort of thing. We don't want to examine this and just be suddenly, we feel terrible and all this and that. I think that's going to be an understood feeling. At least it should be. But we have to go into this with an open mind and an open heart and say, look, this is something that needs to be studied, and we have a lot of questions, and we don't ever want to forget this. That's one of the big lessons that we learned after World War II, is never again, never forget, never do any of those things. Mm-hmm. We've forgotten some particular things of our own past, and we really need to examine that so that something that happened this past weekend doesn't happen again.
Yeah, because this is the thing that should really bother with people. Utah used to be northern Mexico.
Oh yeah,
little fact there for you to.
California, yeah,
yeah, those. Oh, Mexico. When it came to the extension of where the colony of Caroline ended, yeah, that was actually helped established along the tribal agreements of the Iroquois Constitution. We actually divided North and South Carolina up amongst separated and accepted tribal lands of division. That's how the states got their shape. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
I was just thinking you just got tired of those people in the Southern Carolina area and just said, y'all just go away.
Have you ever seen a South Carolina driver?
I try not to.
I try not to denigrate any state amongst the 50 united beautiful states of America. But really, South Carolina drivers... That's why that border exists. Somewhere above Gaffney, we decided, no, they cannot drive.
Forget it.
Everything south of this land is lost automotively. But, okay, comparisons of the two colonies of Caroline aside, sure. The thing that really kind of sticks with you is that we have a terrible history of exploiting indigenous people in this country. And this is kind of, and it should be, if you are an indigenous person, this is kind of a wake-up call that the white man has lost his mind again, and this is the stuff that we can expect for the next 10 years. How do you talk to those Native communities and say, you know what, we're going to find those kids, and everything's going to be cool? Or do we just admit that, hey, you know what? You're right. God help us all. Drew?
Yeah. This is if you want long-term change on this, you have to have a difficult discussion. And you have to go with the open arms, as Journey sang, and say, look, we have to do better. We must improve. And that's for the betterment of this country, for the betterment of this world. We have to have a better understanding of each other. And we also have to remember that there's even indigenous aspects of religion that us whites have done to each other. I mean, you go back to the Salem witch trials. You go back to, saying that, even when immigrants who looked like us came over here in the early parts of the 20th century, no Irish apply for jobs.
No Italians. It was a line of whiteness that we had to move.
That's exactly right. And the same thing have gone for Catholics. I mean, this is an ongoing pattern that we have done to ourselves and to those who don't look like us. Not to mention the ongoing conversation about women. And this is an onion. This is a very large onion.
Okay.
And I say that because it has layers, not because it makes me cry or it stinks or any of that stuff.
Well, it does me. Yeah. I don't know which onion we're looking at, but the tears. I just want to sum this up in a statement because I want one last story before we run out of time. But I'm going to sum this up in a statement and agree or disagree. White men suck.
For the most part, yeah, I got to agree with you on that one. Yep.
Okay, moving to the next story of white men that do suck. This is a very interesting little scenario that I pulled up from the news because this guy was a guy that everybody accused of sucking long ago. Oh, he was, when it came to presidents, the worst. And I'm talking about George W. Bush, who you in Texas have a very special connection to, not just because of the airport, huh?
No, well, yeah, he was governor from 95 to when he took office as president in 2001.
And let's not forget the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, he owned the Texas Rangers for a time and traded away Sammy Sosa before he became a big star and did steroids and whatever else. But
that should have been, by the way, everybody's clue of how bad his presidency would go. He goes, "You traded Sammy Sosa? Oh, we are screwed."
That's right. But
we are done. Pack it up, guys. We are out.
He actually grew up in West Texas in a place called Midland when his dad was owning some oil out here and doing oil before they moved to Houston. But anyway, yeah, the story going on here is that he bought some pizza and had a little pizza party for his Secret Service agents because they're part of the federal government and they aren't getting paid. So I mean, look, will history look back on those 8 years of the Bush years and be kind to him? With the current president, yes. I think that, yes, the answer to that question is yes. When we compare President Bush to President Trump, there's no question that President Bush is much more presidential and statesman-like than President Trump. And I think a lot of Republicans would say that too. But when you get down to the 8 years of analysis of that, you're going to get divided opinion about what happened and whatever was good and all that sort of thing. That's always fair game. But
I want to go ahead and throw this out there that the Canadian air traffic controllers are more presidential than our current president because, Drew, in kind of a story that resembles what George W. Bush did this week, Canadian air traffic controllers decided, hey, we've got free health care, eh? We don't need to worry about paying for that like those stupid Americans. I mean, Americans. Don't call them stupid. They haven't figured out health care yet. Air traffic controllers, Canadians, with all the money they save by not paying for their own health care, decided to send air traffic controllers in the United States who are working without pay right now the very same offering of pizza. And Drew, the bad thing is now we've ran out of time, and we've got to leave on a positive note. This week, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully we've proved to you pizza saved the world.
Go pizza.
Go pizza. Drew, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Shaggy.
Until next week, everybody, take care of yourselves, and you know what? Eat some pizza in solidarity. Love you, mean it, Kate, and bye.